The humidity hung thick as motor oil that Tuesday evening, the kind of Pennsylvania summer that makes your shirt stick to the vinyl seat of a work truck before you even turn the key. I'd just finished up a transmission swap on a 12 Ram when my phone buzzed against my thigh. "Cal, it's me." Dana's voice carried that particular pitch, the one that meant something needed fixing. "The Corolla won't start. I'm stuck at the mill lot and my shift supervisor's already giving me grief about tomorrow's dispatch schedule. I'll hook up the flatbed. 20 minutes. You're the best. Love you." I wiped my hands on a shop rag that had seen better days and told Ray I was heading out early. He waved me off without looking up from his parts catalog. That's the thing about working at the same garage for 11 years. You earn the right to come and go when family calls. The drive to Scranton Fabrication took me past the trailer court where Dana and I had set up our life 13 years ago. Past the elementary school where Riley learned to read. Past Vito Caruso's duplex on Route 6, where his F-250 sat in the driveway like it always did, mud flaps gleaming even in the fading light. Dana was leaning against her silver Corolla when I pulled up, arms crossed, her mill badge still clipped to her collar. At 40, she still had that same nervous energy I'd fallen for at a Carbondale bar back when Clinton was president. Always moving, always planning the next thing. "My hero," she said, climbing into my cab while I worked the winch. "Battery? Probably. It's been sluggish all week." I got her loaded and we drove back to Ray's in comfortable silence, her hand resting on my knee the way it had for 15 years of marriage. Riley texted that she'd scored an assist at soccer practice. Dana smiled at my phone screen and said our girl was going to make varsity next year for sure. Normal. Everything felt normal. I dropped Dana at home and headed back to the shop to run diagnostics. The bay was empty now, fluorescent lights humming their lonely song. I pulled the Corolla onto the lift, figuring I'd knock out an oil change while I had her up there. Routine stuff. The kind of work that lets your mind wander to weekend plans and whether Riley needed new cleats. That's when I saw it. The undercarriage told a story the rest of the car didn't know it was telling. Fresh gouges ran along the frame rail, deep ones, the kind you get from repeated low-clearance scrapes. Not potholes, not speed bumps. Something else. Something that didn't match Dana's careful driving or our flat trailer court lot. I ran my fingers along the marks. Metal doesn't lie. These scrapes were recent, maybe a few weeks old at most, and they told me someone had been taking this car places with rough approaches. Gravel driveways, unpaved lots. The kind of terrain Dana avoided like transmission fluid avoids water. My gut went cold in a way it hadn't since my old man's funeral. I pulled up the service log on my tablet, the digital record I kept for every vehicle that came through my bay. Dana's Corolla had been my project since her mother handed it down 6 years ago. Every oil change, every tire rotation, every brake job, I'd done them all, documented them all. But there was an entry I didn't recognize. Vito's tow, curb scrape repair, after-hours pickup. The timestamp was from 3 months ago. I scrolled back, found another, and another. 5 entries total, spread across 8 months, all from Vito's side business, all after hours, all for minor scrapes that I'd never seen, never been told about. My wrench slipped from my grip and clanged against the lift. The sound echoed through the empty bay like a gunshot. I stood there for a long time, staring at those gouges, my mind running through every explanation that didn't end where my gut said it was heading. Maybe she'd hit something and was embarrassed. Maybe Vito was just being a good neighbor. Maybe I was reading dirt where there was only dust. But the Mills Overtime app, the one Dana had shared with me for family scheduling purposes, was synced to my tablet. I'd never thought twice about it. Never had reason to. I pulled it up. Her overtime logs lined up with Vito's tow receipts like pistons in a rebuilt engine. Perfect timing. Every single one. I texted her. "Car's here. Pick up tomorrow?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Thanks, Han. Love you. Love. The word sat on my screen like a check engine light I couldn't diagnose. Riley's text came through a minute later. Win? Dad pick up? I closed my eyes, breathed, made myself move. On my way, kiddo. The trailer smelled like pine sol and the cheap vanilla candles Dana bought at the dollar store. Riley was already at the kitchen table doing homework when I got home, her cleats leaving mud tracks across the linoleum that Dana would complain about later. Dad, Coach said I might start Friday. Riley's eyes were bright, her dark hair still damp from the locker room. At 13, she was all angles and energy, the spitting image of her mother except for my stubborn jaw. That's my girl. I kissed the top of her head and started pulling pans from the cabinet. Mac and cheese sound good? Extra cheese? Is there any other way? I boiled water and grated cheddar and tried to keep my hands steady. When Dana came through the door an hour later, still in her mill clothes, I watched her move through the space like I was seeing her for the first time. Smells amazing in here. She dropped her bag on the counter and kissed Riley's forehead. How was practice? I scored. That's my superstar. I stirred the pasta. Hey, I noticed some frame damage on the Corolla. Those scrapes, you been hitting curbs or something? Dana's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Just for a second. Just long enough. Potholes, she said. You know how bad Route 6 gets after winter. Vito towed it last time it happened. Real lifesaver. Vito, I kept my voice level. His signature was on the receipt. That a personal favor? She looked at me then, really looked, and something flickered behind her eyes. Yeah, after hours thing. He was helping out. Nice of him. He's a nice guy. Riley launched into a recap of her practice, complete with hand gestures demonstrating the assist that had sent her teammate past the defense. I nodded in all the right places, laughed when I was supposed to laugh, and felt the weight of those frame scrapes pressing against my ribs like a seized brake caliper. Later, after Riley went to bed, I sat on the porch with a Ewengling and pulled up the family calendar app on my phone. Dana and I had been sharing calendars since smartphones became a thing, coordinating pickups, scheduling appointments, managing the chaos of 2 working parents and 1 overachieving kid. I'd never studied it before, never had a reason to. Now I traced my finger across the entries, matching dates and times like I was reading a wiring diagram. Vito cover shift appeared 6 times in the past year, always overlapping with entries that read car at Ray's or running errands. But one entry caught my eye. After hours pickup, personal. Personal. I finished my beer and went to bed. Dana was already asleep or pretending to be, her back a wall of silence between us. I lay there staring at the water stain on our ceiling, thinking about all the times I'd believed her when she said she was working late. All the times I'd taken her dispatch stress at face value, tried to ease it with late-night talks about carburetors and engine timing, things I understood, things that made sense, things that didn't lie. The next morning, I dropped Riley at school early for band practice and headed straight to the shop. The Corolla was still on the lift where I'd left it, that service log entry burning in my mind like a hot exhaust manifold. I spent 2 hours going over every inch of that car. Inside the door panel, tucked behind the factory plastic, I found a sticker. Vito's Tow, with a serial number that matched a loaner vehicle program the mill ran for employees with car trouble. Dana had never mentioned being part of any loaner program. I photographed everything. Timestamps, angles, serial numbers. The shop was my domain, and documenting vehicle conditions was part of the job. Nothing illegal about a mechanic keeping records. That night, Riley was at a friend's house for a sleepover. Dana said she had errands to run after dinner. Grocery store, maybe the pharmacy. Normal stuff. I said I had to go back to the shop to finish a brake job. She pulled out of the trailer court first. I waited 2 minutes, then followed. Her Corolla didn't head toward any grocery store. Instead, it wound through the back roads of Dixon City, past the closed-down textile mill, past the elementary school, and turned onto Route 6. Toward Vito's duplex. I killed my headlights and parked 3 houses down, behind a overgrown hedge that hadn't been trimmed since the Reagan administration. The Corolla sat in Vito's driveway, engine off, but I could see shapes moving in the cab. 20 minutes. That's how long I sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to leave marks on my palms. When I finally pulled forward, my headlights swept across the Corolla's windshield like an accusation. They jumped apart. I could see that much. Dana fumbling for her keys, Vito scrambling out of the passenger side like the seat had caught fire. I rolled down my window. "Cal?" Dana's voice was high and tight. "What are you—" I had a flat tire. Vito was helping. Vito waved from his porch steps, that same casual gesture he'd given me at a dozen block parties. "No big deal, neighbor. Just being helpful." I looked at Dana, looked at the Corolla's tires, all 4 of them full and intact. "Funny," I said. "Tire looks fine from here." I thought. She was stammering now, her hands shaking as she tried to get her key in the ignition. "It was a false alarm. Turned out to be nothing." "Lot of false alarms lately." I kept my voice flat, mechanic neutral, the same tone I used when telling customers their transmission was shot. "Service log says you've had a lot of favors from Vito. 8 months worth." Her face went white in my headlights. "Cal, I can explain." "Not here." I put my truck in reverse. "Not in front of him." I drove home alone, made myself a pot of coffee, sat at the kitchen table with my tablet and a notebook, and started writing everything down. Dates, times, locations, evidence. By the time Dana crept through the door 2 hours later, I had 3 pages filled. "Cal, we need to talk." "Yeah." I didn't look up from my notes. "We do, but not tonight. Tonight I'm going to finish my coffee and go to bed. Tomorrow I'm going to take Riley to practice. And then, when our daughter isn't in the house, we're going to have a real conversation about what the hell has been happening in my marriage for the past 8 months." She stood there in the doorway, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. "Go to bed, Dana." She went. Sleep didn't come. I lay in the dark listening to Dana breathe, my mind turning over the evidence like a stubborn bolt that wouldn't break free. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I needed help. The guys at the shop, Jimmy Kowalski and Pete Torres, both divorced, both survivors of the same kind of betrayal, had mentioned a name once. Dana Ruiz. Not my Dana. A different one. A private investigator who specialized in what Jimmy called domestic logistics. "She won't dig through your wife's underwear drawer," Pete had said over beers one Friday. "But she'll find the paper trail, and in court, paper's what matters." I called her that afternoon from the shop office, my voice steady even though my hands weren't. "Dana Ruiz Investigations. My name's Cal Harlan. I think my wife is stepping out on me. I need to know for sure before I do anything stupid." There was a pause. Then, $85 an hour plus expenses. I don't do anything that'll get thrown out of court. You want revenge? Hire someone else? You want documentation? We can talk. I want to protect my daughter. Then you called the right number. Can you meet me tomorrow? Coffee shop on Main, Carbondale, 9 a.m. I'll be there. Dana Ruiz was nothing like I expected. Mid-50s, silver-streaked hair, glasses that made her look more librarian than investigator. She ordered a black coffee and listened while I laid out everything. The frame scrapes, the service log, the overtime entries, the driveway encounter. When I finished, she pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. "Pennsylvania's a no-fault divorce state," she said. "That means adultery doesn't technically matter for the divorce itself. But it can matter for custody, for spousal support, and for how assets get divided. If your wife's been using marital funds to support this relationship, Travel, gifts, time off work, that's called dissipation, and a judge will take it seriously. What about Riley? How old? 13, 14 in March. Old enough that her preference matters. Pennsylvania courts give significant weight to a child's wishes once they hit 12. But you need to be careful. She looked at me over her glasses. Kids aren't pawns. If she feels like you're using her to get back at her mother, it'll backfire. Hard. I'm not trying to get back at anyone. I'm trying to understand what's happening in my own house. Ruiz nodded slowly. That I can help with. Give me a week to pull some background. Public records, social media scraping, maybe some cross-referencing with those mill schedules you mentioned. Anything more invasive, I'll need subpoena power, which means you'll need a lawyer. One step at a time. Smart man. She tucked her pad into her bag. One more thing. The overtime app you mentioned, the one your wife shared for family scheduling, that's legal in Pennsylvania. Spouses have implied consent to shared family resources. But don't go logging into her personal email or her text messages. That's a line you don't want to cross. Understood. I paid for her coffee and drove to pick up Riley from school, my mind clearer than it had been in days. I wasn't jumping to conclusions. I wasn't throwing accusations. I was gathering evidence the same way I'd diagnose a mysterious engine knock. Find the rattle, document the damage, then figure out how to fix it. That weekend, Riley came home from practice with something that made my blood run cold. We were sitting on the porch, splitting a bag of cheese curls while she told me about a new drill her coach had introduced. She was picking at the laces of her cleats, trying to untangle a knot, when she stopped mid-sentence. Dad, can I tell you something weird? Always. Mom's car shakes funny sometimes, like when she picks me up from Sarah's house. It makes this rattling noise that it doesn't make when you drive it. I kept my face neutral. Probably just needs an alignment check. Anything else weird? Riley bit her lip. Sometimes Vito picks her up. When you're working late. She said not to tell you because it was a surprise or something. Like a ride surprise? Every muscle in my body went rigid. Vito from the block parties? Yeah. He's nice, I guess, but… She trailed off, frowning at her cleats. Why would a ride be a surprise? You don't care who drives her places, right? Right. I ruffled her hair, forcing a smile. Right, kiddo. Just curious. You ready for dinner? I was thinking burgers. Extra pickles? Is there any other way? I grilled those burgers on autopilot, my thoughts churning like dirty oil in a worn engine. Riley had seen things, heard things, been told to keep secrets from her own father. Dana had put my daughter in the middle of this. That night, after Riley went to bed, I called the Pennsylvania Dad Support Hotline I'd seen advertised on a forum. Free, anonymous, 24 hours. A guy named Mike answered. Calm voice, no judgment. My wife's been running around on me, I said. I found the paper trail. Now I don't know what to do next. What's your first priority? My kid. She's 13. She's already starting to notice things. Then your job right now is to be steady. Don't drag her into adult problems. Don't make her choose sides. Document everything you find, but don't put her in a position where she feels responsible for what's happening between you and your wife. What if she's already in that position? My wife told her to keep secrets from me. Mike was quiet for a moment. That's a form of parentification. It's when a parent treats their child like a confidant or accomplice instead of letting them be a kid. Courts don't look kindly on that. Neither do therapists. If this goes to custody, make sure you mention it. How do I protect her? Be her dad. Be consistent. Be present. Everything else is lawyer territory. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat at the kitchen table and wrote down everything Riley had told me, dated and timed. Another page in the notebook that was becoming my roadmap through this mess. Monday morning, I confronted Dana before she left for work. Riley was already on the school bus, and the trailer felt too quiet without her energy filling the spaces. We need to talk about Vito. Dana was pouring coffee into a travel mug, her back to me. She didn't turn around. There's nothing to talk about. Riley told me he's been picking you up, that you told her to keep it secret from me. Now she turned. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set. It was nothing. He gave me a few rides when my car was acting up. I didn't want you to worry about it. You didn't want me to worry about your car, the car I maintain for free at my shop, the car I know better than any mechanic in this county. Cal. The service log shows 5 tow pickups from Vito in the past 8 months, all after hours, all matching up with your overtime shifts. I pulled out my tablet, showed her the screen. I'm not stupid, Dana, and I'm not blind. She stared at the timestamps for a long moment. Then she set down her coffee mug and crossed her arms. Fine. Yes. Vito and I have been spending time together. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I saw you in his driveway. I watched you jump apart when my headlights hit the windshield. It's over. Her voice cracked. It was a mistake. A stupid, lonely mistake, and it's over now. I ended it last week. Last week, after I caught you. Before, I swear, Cal. I was going to tell you. When? After another 8 months? After Riley figured it out on her own? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You told our daughter to lie to me. You made her part of this. I didn't. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And right now, I don't know what's true and what isn't. I don't know how to trust a single word that comes out of your mouth. She reached for me. Cal, please. We can work through this. Marriage counseling, whatever you need. I love you. I love our family. I stepped back. I need you to move into the guest room, tonight. And tomorrow, I'm talking to a lawyer. The color drained from her face. You're not serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. Behind me, I heard her start to cry. I didn't look back. The lawyer's name was Patricia Webb, and she worked out of a converted Victorian house in downtown Scranton that smelled like lemon polish and old paper. She'd been recommended by Dana Ruiz, who said Webb knew family law the way I knew engine blocks. No fault state, Webb confirmed, echoing what Ruiz had told me. But adultery can still affect the outcome, especially when it comes to spousal support and custody. Tell me about your daughter. I told her. About Riley's school performance, her soccer achievements, her close relationship with me. About the secret rides Dana had coached her to hide. About the way my daughter had started gravitating toward me over the past few months, spending more time in my shop, asking to learn about cars and engines. That's good, Webb said. Courts want to see stability and involvement. The fact that you're the one taking her to practice, helping with homework, maintaining consistent presence, that matters. But we need documentation. I've been keeping notes, dates, times, incidents. Bring me everything, and I mean everything. Service logs, calendar entries, any photos you've taken. If your wife has been using marital funds to support this affair, meals, gifts, time away from work, we'll need bank statements too. What about custody? Pennsylvania uses a best interest standard. There's a whole list of factors they consider. Which parent is more likely to encourage a relationship with the other parent? Which parent provides a stable home environment? The child's preference if they're old enough to express one. At 13, almost 14, Riley's voice carries weight. I don't want to put her in the middle of this. You won't. That's what guardians ad litem are for. If this goes to a contested hearing, the court will appoint someone to represent Riley's interests independently. They'll talk to her, assess the situation, and make recommendations. I signed a retainer agreement and drove back to the shop. My hands were steady on the wheel, but inside, I felt like something had broken loose. a part I hadn't known I needed until it started rattling around my chest. That night, I filed for a temporary support order through Webb's office. Under Pennsylvania law, Dana would be served with 30 days' notice. The clock was ticking. When I got home, Dana was still in the guest room. Her door was closed, but I could hear her talking on the phone, her voice low and urgent. I pretended not to notice and went to bed. Week 3 brought the first mediation session, mandatory under Pennsylvania law before any custody hearing. The mediator was a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Constance Wheeler, who worked out of a UPMC-affiliated office with motivational posters on the walls and a bowl of wrapped candies on her desk. Dana and I sat on opposite ends of a beige couch, the space between us feeling wider than the 22 years we'd known each other. The purpose of mediation isn't to assign blame, Dr. Wheeler began. It's to create a framework for co-parenting that puts Riley's needs first. Can we all agree that's the priority here? Yes, Dana said quickly. Absolutely. I want what's best for my daughter. I said nothing. Cal? Dr. Wheeler prompted. I want my daughter to have 2 parents who don't lie to her. I want her to feel safe. I want her to know that adults in her life can be trusted. I turned to Dana. I'm not sure how we get there when one of us has been teaching her to keep secrets. Dana's face tightened. That's not fair. It's what happened. Dr. Wheeler held up a hand. Let's focus on moving forward. Dana, can you commit to transparent communication with Cal about Riley's schedule, activities, and any concerns that arise? Of course. Cal, can you commit to not disparaging Dana in front of Riley, regardless of your personal feelings about the marriage? I've never badmouthed her to our kid. Never will. The session lasted an hour. By the end, we'd agreed to a temporary shared schedule. Riley would stay with me during the week for school consistency, with Dana getting weekends. It wasn't what I wanted, but Webb had warned me that courts favored maintaining both parental relationships. This is temporary, she'd reminded me. Build your case, stay steady. The final order is what matters. Ruiz called that evening with her first report. She'd pulled public records from the mill, scheduling sheets obtained through a right-to-know request, and cross-referenced them with the entries in our family calendar app. Your wife's overtime doesn't match her official work schedule, Ruiz said. There are 17 instances in the past year where she logged overtime hours that don't appear on the mill's records. That's potential time theft, and it's a whistleblower-protected issue under state law. What does that mean for the divorce? It means if she was getting paid for hours she wasn't working, that's marital income she obtained fraudulently. A judge won't look kindly on that. It also undermines her credibility as a witness if this goes to trial. I hung up and added the information to my notebook. Another piece of the puzzle sliding into place. The next few weeks fell into a grim routine. Work, Riley, documentation, sleep. Rinse and repeat. I focused on being the best father I could be, taking Riley to practice, helping with homework, teaching her to change oil on the shop's training car. One Thursday night, I was showing her how to check tire pressure when she stopped and looked up at me with those serious brown eyes. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? I set down the pressure gauge. We're having some grown-up problems, kiddo. We're trying to figure things out. Sarah's parents got divorced last year. She said it was the worst thing that ever happened to her. How does she feel about it now? Riley thought about it. She said it was hard at first, but now she has 2 bedrooms and 2 birthday parties and her parents don't fight anymore. A pause. You and Mom don't really fight, you just don't talk. Sometimes that's worse than fighting. Yeah. She picked up the pressure gauge and turned it over in her hands. Dad? Whatever happens, I want to stay with you. Not because I don't love Mom, just because... She trailed off, struggling for words. You don't have to explain, and you don't have to choose. Whatever happens between me and your mom, we both love you. That's never going to change. But that night, After she'd gone to bed, I wrote down what she'd said, dated it, added it to the pile. Webb had said Riley's preference mattered, and Riley was making her preference clear. Month 2 started with a phone call that made me want to punch a wall. She dropped him, Ruiz reported. I've got confirmation from 2 sources at the mill. Dana ended things with Vito about 3 weeks ago, right around the time you confronted her. So she says, I'm not buying it. Neither am I, because I also intercepted a call, one-party consent state, remember, where she told someone at the mill that she misses their toe talks. Her exact words. She's still seeing him. Maybe, maybe not, but she's definitely not over it. I thanked Ruiz and went back to work, my mind turning over the implications. Dana was playing a game, trying to look like the reformed wife while keeping her options open. 2 could play that game. That weekend was Dana's custody time. I dropped Riley off at the trailer on Friday afternoon, watching my daughter haul her overnight bag up the porch steps. Dana stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression carefully neutral. Be good, I called to Riley. Always am. I drove away, but I didn't go far. Something in my gut told me to wait, to watch. An hour later, Vito's F-250 pulled into the trailer court. He didn't go to our place, not directly. Instead, he parked at his buddy's unit 3 rows over and walked the back path toward our trailer. I watched through binoculars from my spot behind the abandoned maintenance shed, my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. Vito knocked on the back door. Dana answered. They talked for maybe 5 minutes, too quiet for me to hear, their body language too familiar for old neighbors. Then he left, walking back the same way he'd come. I photographed everything, the truck, the route, the timing. Monday morning, I confronted Dana at the trailer before Riley's bus arrived. Vito visited this weekend. Her face went pale. He stopped by to return a tool he borrowed, that's all? A tool. Yes? What tool? A socket wrench for his truck. Vito Caruso, mill foreman with his own fully equipped garage, needed to borrow a socket wrench from my toolbox? Dana's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Cal, please. It's not what you think. I don't know what I think anymore, but I know what I saw. And I know what it looks like. That night, I filed a motion to modify the temporary custody arrangement, citing concerns about Dana's judgment and her continued contact with the affair partner. Webb said it was a long shot, but worth putting on the record. Judges pay attention to patterns, she explained. Even if this motion doesn't succeed, it shows that you're vigilant, involved, and prioritizing Riley's well-being. The breakthrough came 6 weeks in, from a source I hadn't expected. Ruiz had been digging into Dana's work records, looking for inconsistencies in her overtime claims. What she found was bigger than either of us anticipated. There's an admin at the mill, she told me over coffee at our usual spot. Name's Terry Baxter. She's been covering for your wife, adjusting schedule sheets, confirming fake overtime hours, the whole 9 yards. Why? Best friend. Dana vents to her about everything, apparently. But here's the thing. Terry's not doing it for free. She's been skimming hours herself, piggybacking on Dana's scheme. About $1,800 worth by my count. That's felony territory. It's certainly grounds for termination. And here's where it gets interesting. Terry's starting to feel the heat. There's been an internal audit at the mill. Nothing to do with Dana directly, but Terry's scared. She knows her name is on those falsified sheets. Can we flip her? Ruiz smiled. Already working on it. I've got a contact at the mill who owes me a favor. We're going to make sure Terry knows that cooperation is her best option. 2 days later, I got an anonymous message through the shop's email. No sender name, just a burner account. Your wife's been playing everyone. Check the dispatch log for March 15th. Terry's willing to talk if you can guarantee she won't lose her job. I forwarded it to Webb. She called back within the hour. This is leverage, she said. and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Not for the divorce directly, that's going to proceed as planned, but for the custody battle. If we can show that Dana's been engaging in workplace fraud, lying to her employer, and involving her coworkers in a cover-up, that speaks to her character and judgment. What about Terry? Let me handle that. I'll reach out through proper channels. If she's willing to sign an affidavit, we can probably work something out that protects her employment in exchange for testimony. Month 3 brought escalation on all fronts. Dana, sensing that the walls were closing in, made a desperate play. She filed for 50-50 custody, claiming I was alienating Riley from her through excessive work schedules and inappropriate involvement in adult matters. The accusation stung, but Webb wasn't worried. "Standard defensive move," she assured me. "We'll counter with your documentation, the service logs, the calendar entries, the photographic evidence. We'll also submit Riley's school records, which show your consistent involvement in parent-teacher conferences and extracurricular activities. And if Terry comes through, we'll have testimony about your wife's pattern of deception." Meanwhile, Ruiz had been busy assembling affidavits from mill workers who'd seen Dana and Vito together. Nothing explicit, nobody had caught them in the act, but multiple witnesses could testify to unusually close behavior, private conversations, and unexplained absences. "It's circumstantial," Ruiz admitted, "but enough circumstances add up to a pattern, and patterns are what courts look at." The mill's annual mixer was coming up, a potluck event held every spring in the employee parking lot. Dana had always dragged me to these things, but this year she hadn't mentioned it. I decided to go anyway. "This could blow up in your face," Webb warned when I told her my plan. "If you confront her publicly, it'll look like you're the aggressor." "I'm not going to confront anyone. I'm going to show up, smile, and let people draw their own conclusions." Riley came with me. It was technically Dana's weekend, but Dana had agreed to swap days because of a work obligation, which I now knew was code for avoiding me at the mixer. The parking lot was full of folding tables, paper plates, and mill families trying to pretend they didn't all know each other's business. Riley ran off to find her friend whose dad worked in shipping. I grabbed a plate and started making the rounds. Vito was there, standing near the beer cooler with a cluster of foremen. When he saw me, he went rigid. I walked right up to him. "Vito, how's the tow business?" He blinked. Good. Yeah. Busy season. I bet." I sipped my drink, keeping my voice conversational. "You know, I've been looking at my service logs lately. Interesting stuff. Did you know Dana's Corolla has been picked up by your outfit 5 times in the past year? All after hours?" The color drained from his face. "Cal, listen. No, I get it. You were just being neighborly, helping out when her car broke down. 5 times. In 8 months. Always at night. Always when I was at work." Around us, conversations were dying. People were starting to stare. "This isn't the place," Vito started. "You're right. It's not. But you made it the place when you started sneaking around with my wife in front of our whole neighborhood." I set down my drink. "I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here to let you know that I know. That everyone's going to know. And that if you come near my family again, the next conversation won't be this polite." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard whispers starting to spread like oil across water. By the next morning, the whole mill knew. The custody evaluation happened in month 4. A court-appointed psychologist named Dr. Hannah Petrosky spent 2 hours interviewing me, 2 hours with Dana, and an hour with Riley, alone, in a room with comfortable chairs and stuffed animals on the shelves. I'd prepared Riley as best I could without coaching her. "Just tell the truth," I said. "Answer her questions honestly. Don't worry about what Mom wants you to say or what I want you to say. Just tell her how you feel. What if I say something that hurts Mom's feelings? Your feelings matter more than anyone's feelings getting hurt. The doctor's job is to figure out what's best for you. The only way she can do that is if you're honest." Riley nodded, her jaw set in that stubborn way that made her look so much like me. The evaluation took 3 weeks to complete. When the report came back, Webb called me with the results. "She's recommending primary custody to you," Webb said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. "Doctor, Petrosky noted that Riley expressed a clear preference for your home, that she feels safer with you, and that she's uncomfortable with her mother's secret-keeping behavior. She also flagged concerns about Dana's judgment based on the affair and the workplace fraud." "What about Dana?" "Supervised visitation, at least initially. Every other weekend with a gradual transition to unsupervised time if Dana can demonstrate appropriate boundaries and honest communication. It's a strong recommendation. The judge doesn't have to follow it, but they usually do." That night, I took Riley out for pizza to celebrate her Scout badge ceremony. She'd earned her Mechanic's Merit badge by helping me rebuild a carburetor, and she wore it pinned to her sash like a Medal of Honor. "Dad," she said, halfway through her second slice, "is the divorce almost over?" "Getting closer. The judge is going to decide about custody soon." "Am I going to live with you?" "That's what the psychologist recommended. But we won't know for sure until the judge makes a decision." Riley nodded slowly. Then she looked up at me with those serious eyes. "Dad, I'm glad you figured out what was happening, with Mom and everything. I wanted to tell you, but she made me promise. Hey." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "None of this is your fault, not one bit of it. Whatever promises you made, you were just trying to be a good kid. Okay? Okay. And no matter what happens, I'm always going to be your dad. Nothing changes that." She smiled then, a real smile, the first one I'd seen in weeks. "I know, Dad. I know." The divorce trial happened in month 5. Lackawanna County Courthouse, 3rd floor, Judge Margaret Hennessy presiding. Dana's lawyer tried everything. He painted me as a workaholic who prioritized his shop over his family. He claimed I'd stalked Dana to Vito's house on multiple occasions. He suggested that my documentation was obsessive and evidence of an unhealthy fixation. Webb demolished each argument in turn. The service logs were evidence of a mechanic doing his job. The calendar entries were part of a shared family app. The photographs were taken from public roads, perfectly legal. And the affidavits from mill workers, including Terry Baxter, who'd finally agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity from prosecution, painted a clear picture of a wife who'd lied, cheated, and used marital resources to fund her affair. When it was Riley's turn to speak, via a video recorded by the Guardian ad litem, her words hit the courtroom like a hammer. "I love my mom," she said, her voice steady despite the camera. "But I don't trust her anymore. She made me keep secrets from Dad. She told me things weren't happening when I could see they were. And I feel like she put her own stuff ahead of me and Dad. That's not what a family is supposed to be." I watched Dana's face as the video played. She was crying, real tears, not the performative kind she'd deployed in mediation. For the first time, I thought she might actually understand what she'd done. But understanding doesn't undo damage. And damage is what the judge had to assess. The ruling came 3 days later. Primary custody to me. Dana would get supervised visitation every other weekend, with the possibility of transition to unsupervised after 6 months of demonstrated good behavior. Child support calculated in my favor. Alimony denied based on Dana's adultery and dissipation of marital assets through fraudulent overtime claims. The house, such as it was, went to me. Dana was ordered to vacate within 30 days. When I walked out of the courthouse, the sun was brighter than I remembered. Riley was waiting on a bench with Mrs. Kowalski, Jimmy's ex-wife who'd agreed to supervise while I was in court. "Well," Riley jumped up, her eyes searching my face. "You're staying with me, kiddo. For good." She threw her arms around me, and for a long moment, we just stood there, father and daughter, the two of us against whatever came next. The aftermath unfolded faster than I'd expected. Dana moved in with her sister in Wilkes Barre, an hour away. The mill demoted her to day shifts and put her on probation for the overtime fraud. Vito's wife, I hadn't even known he had one, living separately in Moosic, filed for divorce the week after the trial, citing my documentation as part of her own case. Riley went back to school with her head held high. The kids whispered for a while, but kids always do. By the end of the month, she was back to being the soccer star with the weird mechanic dad who could fix anything with 4 wheels. I got promoted to shop lead at Ray's. Day hours, better pay, more time with Riley. Ray said I'd earned it, but I knew part of it was pity. I didn't argue. Around month 7, I started talking to Mia Reyes. She was a realtor who'd come into the shop with a Subaru that needed brake work. We got to talking about the market, about her divorce 3 years ago, about the way life has a way of knocking you sideways when you least expect it. My ex thought marriage was a suggestion, she said over coffee one afternoon, like those speed limit signs they post in parking lots. Recommended, not required. Mine thought it was a pit stop, somewhere to refuel while she figured out her next move. Ouch. Yeah, well, I shrugged. I've got a good kid and a steady job. Some people end up with a lot less. Mia smiled. Some people end up with more. I wasn't ready to date, not yet. But it felt good to talk to someone who understood, who didn't need the whole story explained from the beginning. Webb filed the final divorce papers in month 8. Dana tried one last appeal, claiming she'd reformed and deserved more custody time. The judge reviewed her behavior over the previous 90 days, missed visitation appointments, erratic employment, continued contact with Vito despite a court recommendation against it, and denied the motion. She's done, Webb told me. Legally speaking, this is over. But it didn't feel over. It felt like the end of a very long diagnostic test, where you finally figure out what's wrong but still have to rebuild the whole engine from scratch. Riley turned 14 that March. I threw her a party at the shop, just a few friends, some pizza, and a chance to show off the '66 Mustang I'd been restoring in the back bay. Someday, this is going to be yours, I told her, running my hand over the primer gray hood. When you're old enough to appreciate it. Dad, I already appreciate it. I helped you rebuild the manifold. You handed me wrenches while I rebuilt the manifold. Same thing. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like months. Riley grinned and punched my shoulder, and for a moment, everything felt almost normal. Dana came to pick up Riley for her birthday dinner that evening. Court-ordered visitation, supervised by Dana's sister. I watched them walk to the car, Riley looking back over her shoulder to wave. See you Sunday, Dad. Love you, kiddo. She climbed into the back seat, and they drove away. I stood in the empty parking lot, the setting sun painting the sky orange and pink, and thought about everything that had changed in the past year. I'd lost a wife, gained primary custody, exposed an affair, survived a trial, rebuilt my relationship with my daughter from the ground up. Not bad for a mechanic from Dixon City who just wanted to fix cars and raise his kid. Month 10. Brought a surprise. I was closing up the shop one evening when Mia stopped by with takeout from the Thai place on Main Street. Thought you might be hungry, she said, holding up the bag. Pad Thai and spring rolls, unless you've already eaten? I was planning on leftover pizza, so this is a serious upgrade. We ate at my workbench, perched on stools, talking about her latest listing and my latest restoration. It was easy, easier than I'd expected, and when she stood up to leave, she hesitated by the door. Cal, I want to be clear about something. She turned to face me. I'm not looking for anything complicated. I've done complicated. I don't recommend it. Neither am I. I've got Riley to think about, and she's been through enough. But, Mia smiled. but I wouldn't mind doing this again sometime. The talking part, I mean, and the Thai food part. I think I can arrange that. She left, and I finished cleaning up the shop with a strange lightness in my chest. Not love, not yet. Just the possibility of it. The idea that life might have something more in store than work and custody schedules, and the fading ghost of a marriage that never should have lasted this long. The last piece fell into place in month 11. I came home from work to find an envelope stuffed in my mailbox. No return address, no postage. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. Your stand at the mixer started a chain reaction. Terry sang. The auditors found more than they expected. 3 terminations, including veto. New protocol starting January. Mill's cleaner because of you. No signature, no indication of who'd sent it. I showed it to Webb at our final meeting, where we signed off on the last of the paperwork. Anonymous tip-off, she said, examining the letter. Probably someone inside the mill who wanted you to know the outcome. Happens more than you'd think. Vito got fired? Looks like it. The fraud investigation expanded beyond just the overtime issue. Apparently, he'd been falsifying equipment inspections for months. Liability nightmare waiting to happen. I tucked the letter into my notebook. The same notebook I'd been keeping since that humid Tuesday evening when I first saw the gouges on Dana's Corolla. So it's really over, I said. It's really over. You've got custody, the divorce is finalized, and your ex-wife's boyfriend just lost his job and his marriage. I'd call that a complete victory. Doesn't feel like a victory, feels like surviving a crash. Webb smiled. That's what victory usually feels like. The movies lie about everything else. I proposed to Mia on a Sunday afternoon in December, exactly 1 year after I'd first noticed those frame scrapes. We were at a picnic in the park. Riley's idea, meant to celebrate her straight-A report card. Hot cocoa from a thermos, sandwiches from the deli, and Riley accidentally wandering off to look at ducks right when I pulled the ring from my pocket. I'm not asking you to replace anyone, I told Mia, down on one knee on a frozen picnic blanket. I'm asking you to build something new, with me and Riley, if you're interested. Mia looked at the ring, a simple diamond, nothing fancy, and then at me. Her eyes were bright with something I hadn't seen in years, genuine, uncomplicated happiness. I'm interested, she said. I'm very interested. Riley chose that moment to come running back from the duck pond, saw us, and started screaming in a way that made every dog in the park start barking. You're getting married? If she says yes, I started. I said yes. Mia held up her hand, ring glinting in the winter sun. Riley tackled us both in a hug that nearly knocked us into the frozen fountain. Somewhere across town, in a cramped apartment in Wilkes Bar, Dana was probably starting her evening shift at the new job she'd taken after the mill let her go. Somewhere else, Vito was dealing with the wreckage of his own choices, divorced, fired, reduced to the cautionary tale that neighbors whisper about at block parties. I didn't think about them much anymore. I'd spent enough time thinking about them to last a lifetime. Instead, I thought about Riley's laugh and Mia's smile, and the way the light hit the snow in the park. I thought about the shop waiting for me Monday morning, full of cars that needed fixing and problems I actually knew how to solve. And I thought about what that support hotline counselor had told me almost a year ago. Be her dad, be consistent, be present. I'd done that. I'd keep doing it. The rest would take care of itself. 3 months later, Riley helped me change the oil on the Mustang. Really helped this time, not just handing me tools. She'd gotten good with a wrench, good enough that I trusted her to handle the drain plug while I checked the filter. Dad, she said, her head under the hood. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you think Mom's ever going to be normal again? I thought about it. Dana had started showing up to visitations on time lately. She'd found a new job at a distribution center. Nothing fancy, but steady work. She'd even called last week to wish Riley luck on her math test, the first genuine parenting call in months. I think she's trying, I said. People mess up, Riley, sometimes really badly, but some of them figure out how to be better. I don't know if your mom's going to be one of those people, but I hope she is. For her sake or mine. Both. I wiped my hands on a rag and looked at my daughter, taller than last year, starting to look more like a young woman than a kid. No matter what happened between me and your mom, she's still your mother. And you're going to have a relationship with her for the rest of your life. I want that relationship to be a good one, if it can be. Riley was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Yeah, she said. Me too. She went back to the drain plug. I went back to the filter. The shop was quiet except for the radio playing oldies in the corner, and the soft sounds of two people working together on something that mattered. It wasn't a perfect ending. There's no such thing. But it was a good one. And sometimes, that's enough.